Hello and welcome to the Pendulum, coming to you live on Lagos Television. I am Ajibola Ojeshola. For those who are watching for the first time, the Pendulum is our weekly political program on Lagos Television, wherein we analyze different political developments in the country. Like we rightly know, today is June 12th, and of course, Democracy Day in Nigeria. 26 years of unbroken democracy is what we are celebrating here today. What are the pains and gains? And how have we fared as a country practicing democracy so far in the last 26 years? These are some of the issues we'll be treating on the program today. But before then, we'll take a very short break to bring you some of the trending news in the polity. Stay with us. You're still watching the Pendulum on Lagos Television. Today we are celebrating June 12 as well as 26 years of unbroken democracy in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What are the gains? What are the pains? What can we do better rather as a country to strengthen our democracy? Are some of the things we'll be looking at on the program today. And we have a politician in the studio with us today is Honorable Kalejai Adeboye Paul, representing Ajeromi Felodo Federal Constituency in the National Assembly. It's a pleasure to have you this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, listeners, and thank you for bringing me
And
here.
happy Democracy Day.
Same here.
All right, we had the freest of election on the 12th of June, 1993, and of course, Nigerians were very happy. We trooped out in large numbers to exercise our constitutional right. But unfortunately, that particular election was annulled by the then military president of the country. Share with us your own experience before, during, and after that election.
Well, I greet Nigerians and I say Happy Democracy Day. And we must appreciate God Almighty for the unbroken 26 years of democracy. And asking me for my thoughts about the event and circumstances before, during the elections, and post-election time. I must say that, 26 years ago, some of us were still not at this age. We were also participants at the elections. And what happened before the election was that we've had a lot of Maradona practices by the then military president. He set up, some political parties and said we are free to participate in democracy, and all of us went out, forming so many political associations. One of those which I belonged then was the Liberal Convention. So I was in Liberal Convention, some other people formed some other political associations. And for me, it's sad enough that I was a teacher then, And then the law, as made by the then president was that if you have to practice politics, you must resign. You cannot be a public servant. So I was a teacher and I had to resign my teaching appointment to join politics and join the Liberal Convention. But only to find out that after forming the Liberal Convention, after we did registration, after going through all the abracadabra, and then we ended up, he dissolved all the political associations and said he was forming, two broader political parties. And then he came up with the Social Democratic Party and, of course, the National Republican Convention. So we had to do on your marks again, and then I had to go. I was in the National Republican Convention,
NRC.
NRC. That was where I joined. So those are events that led before we even came up to those two broad political parties. Then we were all jostling to run the elections, and then we had the elections. And as I judged by Nigerians and I judged by the president himself, the then president, who has finally owned up and released the result of the elections, MKO won that elections. And I don't think that Tofa, who was the then presidential candidate of our own party, he really, had much to go against the result of the elections. Even then, everybody already knew that MKO won, but unfortunately, the election was annulled. So that was a stories behind, the elections. And then the post-election, like you have said, is to say that, yes, the result of the election was annulled. The whole country was thrown into turmoil. There were minor protests from here and there saying, look, this is what should happen. But then, the man who won the election had to begin the struggle to regain
claim his mandate.
mandate.
All right. So so far now, looking at what we passed through as a nation before the enthronement of democracy today, would you say that we have learned any lessons and the gains of the option of voting that we had then as a country, looking at what we are practicing today?
Yes, we've learned so much, I must confess. It's not as if we've not, tap into the gains of the past experience. Yes, what we were practicing then was, we even started with the open election.
Option A4.
Option A4, when you have to queue behind your candidates and then it had to be counted. Well, it was quite more transparent. And then there were stories about what happened then. Some people had given some people money, and then they got to the field only to find out they didn't line up behind them. And they say, hey, but now, come, my people. But the people were already somewhere else. So it was a bit transparent. It exposes people whose intentions about voting were not genuine. So people had to vote and openly be counted. So it's an experience. But then I would not say that was the best that could have happened. We could not continue with that procedure for voting, because your voting is your personal decision, and then it's not something that the next person should know who you are voting for. So for people to expose your voting, it led to a lot of acrimony. Some homes were broken as a result of that. So the need to protect the confidentiality of voters is very germane, and that's where we are now. So for me, it's a learning curve, and then we've been able to learn. We moved away from that. And of course, we couldn't have continued with the open ballot system, with the option A4, because if you consider the number of people who voted at that time, we're 32 years. We're talking about 32 years ago.
Yeah.
So if 32 years ago is a bit primitive, now the population has grown in leaps and bounds. We now have a larger population. How do you control voting? How do you say everybody's going to be lining up? Where are the spaces where people will be lining up? So, of course, modern democracy does not even tolerate such voting system. So, for me, where we are now is quite better from what we were coming from. So, it's part of the learning curve. But then, it also says that it's not as if what we're doing before does not have its own advantage, and then it could also be advanced by some proponents of such option A4. But I think that whatever advantages those had could not stand the test of time.
Okay, if that election was not annulled, where do you think we would have been as a nation in terms of leadership, in terms of followership, and good governance at large?
You see, MQ was a man of a kind, a man whose background, the story, you know, speaks volume in terms of who he was, his birth, his poor background, and then his upbringing, how he rose to stardom, how he became wealthy, and then how he has thrown his money as a philanthropist all across the entire country. He was a man that, that was kind to a fault. He was a man who was giving to everybody. So he was, he promoted sports, he did so many things to show that given the leadership position, he could do better. Of course, he had his program, the Hope 90,
Up 93.
Hope 93, and then he wanted to banish poverty. He was in the forefront of campaigning to becoming a president who will lead us to the promised land. He had a lot of promises, they had a lot of manifestos, they're good manifestos, and of course, one would have hoped that if the election was not annulled, MKO would have been one of the best presidents we should have had. But then, who knows? We've had people like that who have demonstrated so much faith, and at the end of it all, they come to power, they can't actualize what they have said. But I'm convinced that MKO, being who he was, will have done a lot, and our country will have been better than what we have today. Today we have 26 years of unbroken democracy. If we have had 32 years of unbroken democracy, we'll have also had the privilege of learning and, learning and learning. The American democracy, which is over 100 years, some other democracies are over 200, 300, 400 years. So we will have moved further. And I think that one of the reasons why MKO won the election was because he was a man that was completely detribalized. He was not taken of a Yoruba, Hausa, whatever. He was a man that mixed with every race, every tribe, every religion. And then, so I think that, and I'm sure, I must say this, that MKO will have been a great leader. And then he will have been able to solve some of the problems that we still have today. But then, that notwithstanding, that's our past. We've moved on. We now have a new president who also have the characteristics of an MKO. He also was a philanthropist. He was also, Bola Tinubu was a man who cut across the entire country, who even before becoming president had made friends across the entire country. He was a man who has been known internationally. He was a man who has also participated in fights for democracy. So here we are at the beacon of history. Here we are again. What we miss in MKO, I think we're having it in Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
But as a country now, let's look at Nigeria. And have we honored the late winner of that particular June 12 presidential election enough? And you think as a country, we have been fair to his sacrifice, to his goodwill, and of course, the family at large?
Well, you see, MQ was like a sacrificial lamb.
For what we are enjoying today.
The Bible says that you must make a sacrifice. You understand, for the atonement of your sin. So he came and atoned for all our sins, and then was supposed to give us the true democracy. But then, to now look at how well has the man been rewarded, how well have we recognized that event? Because it was after that annulment that the military became to see that they could no longer perpetrate themselves in power. There were fights, even though when, MK was killed while he was incarcerated. There were struggles. That was what led to the emergence of the NADECO. And then they were fighting in and outside the country. People, converged outside the country, and they were making contacts in the international communities to say, look, we will not, don't allow democracy to die. So they were struggling outside. There were some people who could not go out, who remained within the country, and were also still patriotic, fighting for the actualization of democracy in the country. So for me, it just, that's what life is all about. That's what life teaches us. We have not rewarded the man sufficiently, I must say. Yes, IBB has finally owned up, and then we have today we are celebrating June 12th as our Democracy Day. When Bola Ahmed Tinubu came in, he also acknowledged the fact that we can no longer say 29th of May is our Democracy Day. He now shifted to June 12th, and today you can see what another dimension that the president has brought into the June 12th. The recognition cannot be total. It will continue till eternity. Today, the president has refused to do a national broadcast for what he will have done this early morning. Nigerians will have woken up to a broadcast, and they will have given us a roadmap for his further advancement of the development of the country. But he said, no, I'm going to give my Democracy Day speech at the National Assembly. So today, the president is at the National Assembly, where he's going to give his, his national broadcast. Still a further recognition of the fact that June 12th has become part and parcel of our calendar. And beyond that, I also know that some things have been named after him, but that will not be enough. I think the hues and cry about the recognition of the June 12th and the man MKO also is coming from the children. Have the children been well rewarded? They have not been adequately compensated. Has the family of late Kudirat been so rewarded? They have not been so rewarded. So if we're enjoying democracy today because somebody laid down his life, it's like a Jesus who laid his life to, to save mankind, to reconnect mankind with the Creator. So if he has paid that sacrifice, what are we doing for the family? Are we not inviting them to be part of government? Shouldn't they be playing a role? Shouldn't they be ministers? Shouldn't they be whatever? And then, why not if not? I know the first one was also trying to go into politics to say, like, I want to run to be president of this country. Why not? He gave up at a middle point. It's still that they don't have enough support. They don't necessarily have to be president of the country before they are well recognized and before their contributions are noted. So I think that beyond naming monuments, beyond naming June 12th as Democracy Day, we must look at the children. We must look at, MKO lost almost everything he had under incarceration, when he was incarcerated. He lost almost everything. His resources, his money, everything plundered. Because he ran a presidential election, he was jailed, he was not allowed to rule, he lost so much money in elections, and then he couldn't recoup. He died in prison. So the children today, how well have they fared? So we must look at them. There must be a complete rehabilitation, a complete compensation for not only the children, the entire family, and then we must also be able to institute, some democratic institutions in
his name.
In his name. The Institute of Democratic Studies, why don't we name it after him? Why the stadium? Yeah, he was a sport enthusiast, but then we could name some other things after him. So I think we have not compensated him sufficiently enough.
All right. One of the major indices of democracy is the freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Today, some people have decided to protest in different parts of the country. Civil society groups, Take It Back movement. What do you feel, or what's your opinion about this protest of 2 years of hardship, 2 years of insecurity, and some other challenges facing the country?
Well, while I don't quarrel with people protest is a fundamental right of every Nigerian and every citizen all over the world. The idea of protest is to say, look at us. We're not happy with this and that. So fine, protest is part of the ingredients of democracy, and it must be so allowed for people, as long as those protests are done in a matured manner, as long as they are not destructive, as long as they are not targeted at looting people, because sometimes those who organize protests, when not properly managed, will lose the protest in the hands of hoodlums, who will now hijack the protest and destroy the society. They loot shops, they do all kind of nefarious things that does not conform with the agenda of those who are protesting. Fine. So if protests are properly managed and guided, I don't have any problem. And the cry of a child in the midnight is not a sign of disturbance. It's a call for attention. So what protest is a call for attention to say we're not happy with so and so, and we want something to be done. Fine. But having said that, I want to say that rather than choose June 12 as a day to protest, it should have been a day to celebrate. A day to celebrate the man who laid down his life for democracy. It should be a day for us to mount flags, to carry, monuments of MKO, and then we can parade it all over the country and, show that he was a man that we wanted as our president. So it shouldn't be a day to protest. We should have chosen another day to protest. I also ran into the protest, while I was coming. And then, well, it's well appreciated that they're also part of the democratic principles, that we must also be able to express our grievances at any given point in time. But I think that today should have been a day of celebration. Celebration for us as Nigerians, that today we have witnessed unbroken 26 years of democracy. We are still growing, and we could do better.
All right. So looking at everything now, Nigeria as a country, and the fact that we've been practicing democracy for 26 years without breaking it, as a people who entrusted the political class with their vote, do you think they have cause to celebrate, looking at the mood of the nation today?
Okay, what is the mood of the nation? The mood of the nation is that everybody still feel that poverty is prevalent. I agree. But can we look at where we're coming from? We must look back. Can we look at ourselves as a people? Can we judge ourselves as being productive enough? Can we continue to depend on a mono economy, depend on oil, and accept that we'll get out of the crucifix? It's going to be difficult. We must also look internally and address ourselves as a people and become more productive. We must become more innovative. We must depend less on government. If the government is not good enough for you, can't you be good for yourself? In the Bible, they said the works are plenty, the laborers are few. When I was growing up, I used to worry within myself. I said, what is the Bible saying? That the laborers, the works are many, the laborers are few. I have said, but there are a lot of unemployment. But as an employer of labor, I've come to understand that yes, there are plenty of work to do. The laborers are few. When we say laborers, we are those who genuinely want to work. How dedicated are the public servants to their service to the nation? How dedicated, even those who you buy things from, even from those who sell gari, those who sell rice, how sincere, how faithful are they when they give you the noodles, the model with which they sell their things? So we must look at ourselves, we must diversify. I know that government has a major role to play. Government will dictate direction. And I think our government must live up to dictating the direction at which the country must move forward. So for me, we may not have enough reasons to celebrate, but we still have reasons to celebrate because, one, we're alive. We still have a one nation that's called Nigeria. We still have a lot of things that the new government is putting in place. Now we're no longer borrowing money to pay salaries. We can pay salaries of workers. We have a wage increase. The country is not collapsing. The local government are well funded. The state are well funded. The federal is also getting out of the funding quagmire. So for me, the present government is not doing badly.
All right.
Just hold
your thoughts. The program is still the Pendulum on Lagos Television. We'll take a very short break now to bring you a soundbite of the week. And the soundbite of the week is that presidential broadcast of Mr. President today to the joint session of the National Assembly. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Since 2018, we have celebrated Democracy Day on this day to commemorate the sacrifices of the men and women who fought to restore democratic governance to Nigeria. Per year, election after election, every time we debate instead of battle, we discuss instead of fight, and argue instead of destroy. We preserve the institution of democracy. More importantly, we weave the culture of democracy into very fabric of our nation. Our achievements are not the work of one man. They are the result of a collective effort to make possible the Nigerian dream. Yet the journey is not over. We must work even harder to translate broad macroeconomic gains into tangible improvement in the lives of ordinary Nigerians. We must stay the course, reject cynicism, and believe Nigeria can and will rise again.
That was the soundbite of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu addressing the joint session of the National Assembly earlier today as part of activities marking 26 years of unbroken democracy in Nigeria. We still have in the studio with us Honorable Kalajaye Adeboye Paul, PhD, representing Ajiromi Felodun Federal Constituency. Yeah, before that break, you were trying to highlight why Nigerians should celebrate 26 years of unbroken democracy.
Yeah, I am convinced and I'm very optimistic that the journey of our democracy is still growing and we're all learning. But I'm optimistic that we're on the right path. Under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there is a clear-cut direction about where we should be going and where we are going. A lot of developments are going on. We have to go back to a country that we used to be, the agrarian economy. And so much investment is being put in agriculture. But it's just that some of those investments are not one-day investments. I'm aware that a lot of implements and machineries that are being awaited that will arrive very soon to engage our people in mechanized farming.
Amen.
You see, our major problem is food. A nation that cannot feed itself cannot be happy. So no nation will depend on other nations to feed them. So we have the land, we have the people. All we don't have is implements. We can no longer continue to go and be tilting ground like our great-grandfather used to do. So if we engage in mechanized farming, I'm sure we'll get out of poverty. If food is available and food is affordable, not only available, the food is available today, not in the quantum that will make it affordable. It's when you have much more, when you have the quantum of food that you require that will bring down the prices of food. And then you cannot continue to produce food under those kind of conditions and expect it to be cheap. So mechanized farming is coming. I'm also aware that one of the things that will aid farming and aid agriculture is road infrastructure. Because a lot of things that get expensive in terms of food are caused by transportation costs. So except we develop our road infrastructure, and the road infrastructure is being addressed very significantly under this administration. Talk about the Calabar, Lagos, coastal roads. Some governors have confessed that they cannot but support President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for that very singular action. because it's going to connect almost every major state in Nigeria. And then if we have a coastal road that can help in transportation, it will help in reducing prices. I'm also aware that rails are very much being developed. Forget it that in the past, a lot of things were transported through the rail. But today, if we have to do road transportation, it's going to be more expensive. So food will come with the support of the road infrastructure. And I'm also aware there is so much that is being done in the health sector. The health sector, in the major challenge we have is that everybody who is sick, who has malaria, who has a little ailment, will go to the general hospital or you go to specialized hospital. It's not supposed to be so. What we need to do is develop a primary health care center. And the primary health care system is being developed, is being funded. And under the coordinating minister for health, I think a lot is being done in that direction. So we could go on and look at the entire strata of our economy and know that issues are being addressed. But then Rome was not built in a day. So the transformation will not manifest just in one day, but they are beginning to manifest. I'm sure Nigerians' patients are becoming intolerable. They are becoming restless because when your patients become overtasked, you become, intolerable. But I appeal to Nigerians that we need to do more of patience, more of cooperation with this government, and more of understanding. We'll get there. We'll get to the Rubicon. It's just that we need to walk the talk.
As much as Nigerians would like to support and, of course, show some level of understanding with this government, some people are of this opinion that, okay, those that we have elected are meant to be our servants. But when you look at their quality of life and compare it with those people that entrusted them with their votes, it's a sharp contrast. And looking at an average worker in Nigeria today, 70,000 on minimum wage, which everybody is not enjoying yet. The cost of living is quite high. So how would Nigerians survive all these challenges? And looking at their leaders, seeing that they are living in affluence.
Okay, thank you very much. Jibola, you know me before today. So I've been a pauper. I would also say those who would lead, those who would save the poor cannot be poor. Those of us who you call the leaders, who you think we're living in affluence, I don't agree. I still live my modest life. I don't go about with security. I don't overblow my ego. I still believe that there is always a tomorrow and that you cannot be in position perpetually for life. So therefore, let me also let you know that most of us who are in leadership were never poor before we got there. So nobody will go into leadership and pray that he will be poorer than the way he got into the position. So it's not as if they are displaying affluence. Some few individuals may be displaying affluence to the chagrin of the poor people, but I don't think that is an average way to judge the entire leadership. We're living by example. I know a lot of my colleagues who are also living by example. And besides that, we are concerned about the problems of our people, the problems of our constituents. I, as a person, I know how much I intervene in terms of the problems of my constituents. I know how much poverty alleviation I do. I know how much empowerment I do. I know how much, bailout I do. Just this morning, somebody was in the hospital. He sent me a photograph. He's been admitted. He had leg problems or whatever. So, which hospital are you? What can I do to support you? We support the poor. We support the masses. So, but it's just that you cannot depend perpetually on government. Everybody must learn to do something. You must learn to do something. You must learn to learn one trade or the other. We cannot all depend on white-collar job. As a graduate, I know that I was the one sweeping the entire market in Suru Alaba. I engage in the PSP operation, and sometimes I engage in manual sweeping myself as a university graduate. So how many of us are ready to do that today? How many of us are ready to? I sold shoes on the streets of Lagos as a graduate. I was carrying shoes in my bag and I was selling in offices. How many of us are ready to do that? So the question is, we must say, physician, heal thyself. Why you continue to look at leadership and say leadership are living in affluence and whatever, is not enough for you to give up. You must create a path. You see, out of necessity comes wealth. Out of failure of government comes resource, comes wealth. If NEPA is working perfectly, those selling generators will not sell.
Sure.
It's an invention that came as a necessity of life. So if the pipes are running in our various homes, there will be no need for pure water or bottled water manufacturing companies. But it's the failure. So what gap are you seeing as an individual? What gap are you seeing in what is happening in the society that you can tap into and make resources and make money? So don't wait. When there is a failure here, you fill the gap. Those who carry refuse, those who are in waste disposal, those who are in some other industry. So for me, it's time for us to wake up. So nobody wants to. And don't always expect that those who vote in office will return and wear tattered clothes. The argument about, they earn so much fantabulous salaries, allowances, and whatever, they are overbloated. I come to Lagos every weekend to my constituents and I stay with them. I live with them. I live among them.
Don't you get hardship allowance?
Those allowances you call hardship allowance are not hardship allowance. The allowances that are meant to, cushion your effect of transportation, flight to your various constituents, otherwise you'll be disconnected. Those are those money they call huge jumbo allowances. No, it's not. You cannot even meet your daily request. You cannot. If I fly here every weekend and I spend an average of 400 to 400, 500,000 every weekend, so how much is the so-called allowance? So if you take 2 million out of it, then you know what you call the jumbo allowance.
How then do you survive? Just like an average Nigerian worker who is on 70,000 naira.
Okay, let me explain to you. Before you become a member of the National Assembly or before you become a minister, how were you living? Don't you have things you were doing? I still survive today from my businesses. And I put hand in my businesses' money to also assist my constituents. So were you a pauper? What were you doing before you became? So it is now time for us to look at those who want to, make our leaders. If you make people who cannot even, you have not been able to do something that society can see. If you have not been able to contribute to the society by economically, socially, morally, and whatever, and you want to lead the people, you cannot lead the people. Our Lord said the poor cannot salvage the poor. So you must have something. The Good Samaritan had money. That was why he was a Good Samaritan. Those who got there and ran away were afraid because they had no money. The Bible recorded it, that the Good Samaritan deposited money when he got to the hospital. So those who ran away, they don't have money. So you can't be a Good Samaritan if you don't have anything to offer. So we must think of people who have something to offer before we vote them into the office. So they are not lured by the office paraphernalia.
All right. As we begin to wind up now, 26 years of democracy, and of course, we still have 2 more years in the life of this administration. What do you think are those vital things that Nigerians can hold on to, even as we look forward to celebrate another Democracy Day, by the grace of God, come 2026, 12th of June?
Some of those things that I'm looking forward to is that we can assist in stabilizing our Naira-dollar relationship, that Naira can gain some level of stability. So one of those things I'm also looking at is the inward thinking, to think inward, to be more innovative. I'm looking at government, and I think government is already proactive in this direction, to ensure that we can fall back on our local production of some of those things that we're dependent on abroad. If we reduce our import dependent, Naira will grow. If we stop importing almost everything that is importable, how do you explain it? That we're no longer wearing our local fabrics. You understand it? Because the textile industry have folded up. All the textile industries are no longer working. So I'm looking forward to reviving most of our industries, so that when our industries get revamped, we'll be less dependent on. I'm looking up to that. I'm looking up to also seeing a country and a nation where there is stability, where the local government system can function effectively, where the local authority can intervene in inter-roads, in connectivity roads, where the local government can also intervene in terms of the primary health care. So our local governments must function effectively for us to, those are some things I'm looking at. Because the local governments receive so much resources now. And I'm also looking at the activities of the state government. As you said, ask your governors. The governors also must wake up. Why is it that Naira depreciate as soon as we get allocation? We must appeal to our consciences to say that, look, if you amass the entire resources, where are you carrying it to? Life is a leveler. Man must also know that it's a mortal life. We will leave this world one day, and then we'll be accountable to our Creator. So let's appeal to our consciences, the consciences of our leaders, and consciences of our followers too, because some of the activities of some followers can be more dangerous than even the leaders. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to, and I'm looking at Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration that can take us to the next level.
All right. Okay, Honorable Kalejai Adeboye Paul, representing the people of Ajeromi Fedodu Federal Constituency in the Green Chamber of the National Assembly, appealing to the conscience of the political class as well as followers, asking all of us to show interest in the development and growth of our dear nation Nigeria, even as we mark 26 years of unbroken democracy in the Federal Republic of Nigeria today. We must thank you for your time on the Pendulum this afternoon.
Thank you very much. And listeners, thank you for taking your time and giving us attention.
All right, that's the show today. We thank you very much for watching. We'll be back again next time talking politics as usual on the Pendulum. I am Ajibola Odeshola. See you next time.